It started actually when Guillermo saw my short film that I had done. He was familiar with my comic book work, and he's always had a public email address. And so when I first started working on my short, I sent him a couple of stills from it, and he responded back right away, and it was very encouraging, which is nice. And took a while, took about 5 years to finish the short. A lot of effect shots in it. And through a friend, Nick Nunziata, who's actually a producer on the movie, he ripped the short, put it up on an FTP site. Guillermo was in prep on Hellboy 2, and he basically forced Guillermo to watch it. And from there, I got an email back saying he really liked the short, but Nick phoned right away, so he wants to talk to you. So he gave me his phone number. And you got to keep in mind that Guillermo is like one of my directing idols, so all of this is pretty fantastic and amazing what's going on. And he said he really enjoyed the short. He had a script that he co-wrote with Matthew Robbins, and he wondered if I would be interested in directing it. So that was kind of a bit of a no-brainer. And but then he sent the script along, and the script he said was absolutely fantastic. So someone's calling here.
What's your method of working with him when you're working? Did he let you complete freedom while shooting, and then you went back to?
No, I mean, Guillermo was there at times, and it was a very collaborative kind of structure, actually. I mean, they were very protective of me in the sense that, I mean, I had fantastic DPs and a fantastic production designer, and so really working with all these people to elevate the material and it was such a fantastic script and such a deep, rich script, and to have someone like Guillermo there when I needed him to bounce ideas off of or whatever was fantastic. Oh, he would come over at times because we shot in Melbourne, so it was a very short flight. So. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's in terms of coming from comic books to movies that you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's because you are creating in a complete vacuum when you're doing comics, especially if you're writing them. It's just you. You're writing, you're working on a page, and so to be able then to essentially rip out those images from the page in your mind and put them into a movie is. I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I don't want to say that it just came naturally. I mean, it's making movies art, but because of the people that were involved, like I say, like the production designer and my DP was so wonderful. It just sort of was a natural thing. It came out, and it's just working. Obviously, having done a short, which I think is really ripped from the kind of imagery that I created. It's the storytelling is there. I mean, I've always been a storyteller. I love movies, and I got into comics because movies wasn't really an option at the time when I graduated. So there was always the love of film first before comics, and so when the opportunity arose to do that, I honestly feel like I'm much more comfortable in movies than I was in comics. If that makes sense.
I would like to know how was the process for choosing the casting,
Yeah, I mean, we went to them very early with Katie Holmes and Guy Pearce and Bailey. Bailey was probably the toughest one. I think we saw every girl age 8 to 9 in North America. And she came along towards the end. She had been working on another movie, but she walked in the room and you just knew immediately there was something about her. She's just so engaging and so talented. And Katie, bringing Katie on, I mean, she has this maternal instinct that is so strong. And I think she's going to really surprise a lot of people in this movie. It was a risk for her to take something like this, and the level that she brought to this movie I mean, it makes your job easier when you have an actor like that who's just willing to, who gets the character and she just gives it to you every day. And Guy Pearce, consummate professional, so prepared, just a fantastic actor to work with. I mean, they were all different in terms of their approach, but they just worked together so well. Yeah. Well, I think that it's a bit of a throwback to movies that they haven't seen in a long time anyway. So I think that there's a lot of people who probably aren't even used to that kind of movie. And I think that they, you know, what I call earned scares. You know, that you are creating the tension and you build up to it and build up to it and build up to it. And I think that the scares in our movie build off of each other, so they do. I mean, you know, the next scare it's even worse than that one. And then, you know, so when people are watching it, you know, when they start murmuring and squirming in their chairs, you know that it's resonating. And they're almost building that scare up, like they're waiting for it. And I think that that's just human instinct. And so getting that first one in and showing them what it is, they are able to move along with you and build off of those. And I think people really enjoy it. I think people really enjoy being scared. So. Yeah.
Guillermo discussed in writing the script saying he didn't want to touch the things that he felt didn't work in the original. So my question for you is, you know, what were these aspects for you? What did you think worked in the original? What were the things you wanted to, you know, preserve and make sure it made it your film?
Oh, just getting back to the scares, I mean, I think that there's something inherently creepy about these tiny little things. I think that we were very respectful.
Sorry, it was my breath.
I think we were very, very respectful to that there's a lot in the original that works, that is so strong, and you know, and why rock the boat? You know, just to bring that into. You were talking about that earlier, just to elevate the.
Yeah, well, and to, you know, there is look. What I loved about the original was the fact that these things were not big and scary. They were small and wickedly smart. You know, and they relayed on the fact that no one could see them and no one would believe they existed. But the fact is, this movie, when I saw it as a kid, it became such a powerful movie. It left such an imprint in my imagination. And years later, I saw it again as an adult, and I realized, like, it must happen to you now and then, that you reread a book or you rewatch a movie, and you realize there's a second movie that you entirely made up in all those years. That is not the movie you originally saw. And I thought there's room for that movie to exist. And I started writing the movie originally in '98 with Matthew Robbins to direct myself. And one of the things I loved about it was to create these creatures the way they were in the original, because that worked.
Hey guys, Mark Walters, again, what I'm Troy, very nice to meet you. Good to see you. Troy, I wanted to ask you, being a comic book creator, what were some of your personal influences artistically, maybe, you know, going into your profession? And you know, what were some of those influences? How did they influence your perception on how to visualize this film?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from a world where you are essentially creating worlds from scratch, you know, I think from the color palette to the design of the house, you know, working in terms of wardrobe with the characters, you know, having a juxtaposition of what, you know, trying to force something that doesn't work in the context of what a house likes. I really did fixate on color. I was a color Nazi when I was working on this movie. There was movies that are colors, sorry, that extras had to wear. Because essentially I broke it down. The house is all warm, like autumn colors. The outside world was all cool colors. So anytime you see anyone in the outside world that wasn't Katie or Bailey, they're wearing blues and grays and purples. So you watch every extra. I'd stand there and know if they're wearing green, they're out. And so that all comes. That all comes from, you know, years of working in comics and design and being able to translate that to movies.
And Guillermo, what was it about Troy's work that inspired you to
Well, you know, I was a big fan of the comic books already. Jennifer was the first time I saw his work, and I lost it after an original piece of art he had. It was Jennifer in the bed with the tentacles spilling over the blankets.
It's in his house.
Which is in my house now. I wanted very much to know that guy, know the guy the same way that I wanted to know Mike Mignola, for example. And we met, we had a good first encounter, and then he emailed me some JPEGs of his short. And I wrote him back an extensive email saying how great it looked, blah, 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 and encouraging him to finish it. And then Nick Nunziata, when he heard we were doing Don't Be Afraid, he said, I'm going to send you that short. And I remembered how great those images were. And then I saw it, and it was entirely, a sensibility was there already of a person with a worldview. And it was very skillfully directed. So, I really think one of the duties, if you can do it as a producer, is to produce first-time filmmakers. Because I much rather see somebody bring something new to a genre than producing something that seems safe. So I think Troy had a new and fresh view on the material.
I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier that you were shooting for PG-13 and the rating for working R. I'm wondering, is that something that you can impact, or did that give you the freedom to maybe go back and reintroduce some ideas that you originally thought out?
We actually did not tamper with it after that. I think that there was one shot which is a gash in a hand that I wanted some tendons to show. And we had, I think we agreed to tame it down.
Yeah.
And then we just called the effects house and said,